So, good morning. On behalf of the Compute Platform and my colleagues of that platform, Tommi Neronen from Finland and Stephen Newhouse from the UK, I will try to present here things which may be a boring part of what you are speaking today about. This means the way how actually all these nice high-level concepts and interoperability stuff is actually done and how it is guaranteed that it can be realized. We had heard about the computing in the main program. We have heard about all the stuff of interoperability of the data, but we within the Compute Platform are really focused on how these things can happen. The Compute Platform itself has this is the project, the ELIXIR EXCELERATE project is already mentioned, and the Compute Platform is heavily supported by this project. So I am here using part of the description of work to describe what we are actually doing. And we have three major objectives, both within the project and within the ELIXIR as a whole. The objectives are to actually organize a platform, distributed cloud, compute, storage, access control platform which allows all the other concepts and all the other ideas to be actually implemented on the real digital world, not only as concept, not only as papers, but actually something which you can execute. It also, the other objective and goal is to provide a relationship with other major European and out of Europe players who are dealing with the same stuff on a more general way. The so-called e-infrastructures, which are dealing with how all the sciences can actually use the power of the digitized, of the data and the processing and analysis of the data, and we deal with them and we try to naturally make synergies and to leverage on their results. And the third is to, again, the use cases which were excellently introduced in the previous speech, to deal with the use cases and to use them as pilots to demonstrate that what we are dealing with actually makes sense for the science. And the foundation is, as usual, the collaboration of individual ELIXIR nodes together with the more universal or application or scientific domain neutral infrastructures to actually create the compute platform. The positioning is, you have heard about the core resources in one of the previous talks. So we have kind of relying services, services which actually run and provide something for the ELIXIR and the life science community. And the compute platform is basic foundations on which we would like in the future to run and to depend all these relying services. We have our own services which are part of the ELIXIR ecosystem and which are naturally the extension of the neutral e-infrastructure provisioning that allows to tailor the digital world into the expectations and needs of the ELIXIR life science community. And we naturally have a lot of ELIXIR service, of external service providers, which helps us to actually provide what we are trying to achieve. The strategy of the ELIXIR Compute Platform is seemingly simple. We don't want to develop yet another infrastructure which will be running and managed and operated in parallel to all the others. We are trying to actually build on top of all the services which are already available of all the pieces, and the goal of the compute platform is more to integrate these, to eventually tailor them as little as necessary, to provide a coherent infrastructure for ELIXIR. This looks a simple way, but just try to imagine the situation which was described with all the core services. If you know, or if you are using the individual core services, you know that each one has a completely different way how you can register. Each one has a completely different way how you actually access it. how you work with it, what kind of data they are able to accept, what ways of transporting data between your own depositories and the actual services are done. So you have a huge plethora of different services which have practically nothing in common. And the main challenge of the ELIXIR Compute Platform is trying to help making this more user-friendly, more common in a way that these differences will be continuously removed in a way that you will be able to use the same access, the same identification of yourself, the same access control, the same way how you express your need for the data, the same ways or just a small set of ways how you transfer the data to and from the services. The interfaces to be running in a way that it will be easy for you to actually use different services in your joint task and for your own research. And the interoperability is doing this at the higher level, and we at the Compute Platform are trying to do this at the more lower technical level. What we did within the strategy already is that we already established an ELIXIR-wide AI, which is becoming a kind of a pilot or prototype for hopefully the future life science authentication and authorization infrastructure that we would like to encompass all the life science communities and activities. And on the other hand, we expect that this AI will be fully compliant with the EOSC or other infrastructures AIs in a way that it will allow you to use the same identification, the same way to access all the resources. We do similar stuff, and we will see, I will have a few slides later, we do the similar stuff for the cloud, for the actual compute and analysis, and for the storage and data movement among the individual nodes and among the individual services. So I already mentioned the ELIXIR AI. The authentication and authorization service or infrastructure, its main goal is to provide a digital identifier. This is a generic goal of any AI. The ELIXIR AI was built on requirements from the community, which is heavily using social media and this kind of Google accounts on one hand, and on the other hand spans toward the access to highly secure and private data, dealing with human data, where your identity, which you just created a few moments ago in a Facebook, definitely is not sufficient to prove that you are the one who got right to access this kind of data. So what we built is an infrastructure that AI, using the pieces which are already available from the individual e-infrastructures, from the research in this area, to provide an infrastructure that really is able to encompass both the low-level assurance stuff from the social media and social and the Google-like stuff, up to, which is the current work in progress, up to the high-level authentication and assurance level for the persons to provide it cross-academia and cross-commercial providers. Because one of the drawbacks of the infrastructure, of the research infrastructures, is that they usually have huge restrictions on the access from the commercial sphere and for the use of people and getting in people who are not affiliated with any academic or purely research institution. But this is naturally the requirement from ELIXIR. So this is one thing where we have the AI, this is already in production, and this is expanding. And as I said, the goal is not to run it indefinitely, but eventually to dilute it into the life science AI as a part of the EOSC or similar European-wide or even global-wide activities. As I said, or you have heard it already, the heart of ELIXIR are data. But for the compute platform, data are a challenge because you have to store them somewhere. You have to find a place where they can sit, and this place must be sufficiently secure, both in a way of availability and the access control, so that the site is there, the data are there all the time, they are not modified, and they are accessible only to those who are actually permitted to use them, which goes back to the AI I mentioned on the previous slide, that we need an infrastructure to actually express what you are allowed to do and who is allowed to do what. For the data, we are focusing not too much on the actual storage, which is the responsibility of, say, the infrastructures and other activities, but we are currently more interested in the data movement. Because one of the things which we see more and more is actually cross-correlation, work which is spanning several data resources. And there, the actual question is how to actually support the people to be able to collect the data from individual resources to do their own analysis, which may need huge data movement across Europe. We are establishing the data replication service, and we are currently piloting within ELIXIR how this can be achieved within the European academic network, and we are moving into the direction to actually create an environment which will allow you to do things which were mentioned previously, like large-scale workflows, like cross-correlation among different data sets, with all the machinery needed to control the access to the data, especially in cases where the data are human data and where there may be restrictions even for the movement or for the way how the data are allowed to be processed. The processing, the storage and data are simply the data, but what we actually are looking at is the analysis of the data. The current idea of the compute platform is that the cloud technologies are the tool which can help us to serve the life science community the best. So what we are dealing with is to actually bring together pieces of the cloud technologies, going from the commercial offers from Amazon and Google up to the research done in European projects and eventually national projects, to bring together a platform, an environment on which the CWL or any other Galaxy, Chipster run workflows can actually run what they need, can be able to find physical resources which are of sufficient capacity to actually perform the task which the scientists are looking for, and eventually to allow us, in cases where we can't move the data into an aggregate where it can be processed, to actually move the computing pieces as part of containers or whole virtual machines which can run on clouds, to move them more closer to the data or closer to environments which are considered secure enough to process sensitive data in a way which is guaranteed also for the owners of the sensitive data, that the actual processing is not incorrect, that you are not asking something, but they then submitting a completely different jobs. This, again, the cloud and container technology can allow the compute platform to achieve. And this is a part which we are moving now on, and this will be one of the major aspects for the next year. As you already have heard, the ELIXIR currently, with the support of ELIXIR EXCELERATE, is trying to demonstrate the benefit of individual platforms through the use cases, through the scientific use cases. So again here, what we are trying to do is to use the same 4 major use cases, plus eventually training, to demonstrate that the AI is actually of value to them, so that their services can be connected and the people can use the ELIXIR identity to run the service, that the data movement and storage and resources and capacity is really there to expand what is currently available within individual use cases. And the cloud and compute part is actually there to provide access to resources, to capacities, where this stuff can be run at larger scale for more users, for more people. We already, the last 1.5 years, or well, last year, we already worked with the marine metagenomics as the interoperability platform to actually demonstrate that this is the case. It may seem very simple that there is some workflow and that the data must be moved in, then the data are processed, and then the results are sent back. But to actually allow such a workflow to run not only in a predefined environment of the site which developed one particular marine metagenomics pipeline, but that all this can be moved and transferred elsewhere, to the Czech Republic, to Spain from Norway, and that the same metagenomics pipeline can be run on resources from different countries, from different ELIXIR nodes, with the same results as in Norway, extending and expanding in such a way the capacity for the marine metagenomics without the needs of, say, Norway or EBI to invest more into the resources. Because at the end, you as a researcher can come up with to the marine metagenomics portal with your own token, which represents resources of your own ELIXIR node, submit your job, but the processing, the analysis, the workflow will be run at your ELIXIR node or at the resources which your ELIXIR node provides or somehow agreed on where they are. So that way, how to actually encapsulate the whole workflow, how to encapsulate the individual parts, and how to make sure that the processing engine is actually able to do this, that was the major goal and the major challenge of the marine metagenomics demonstrator. What we did at the end was that we are currently actually able to run the marine metagenomics pipeline from Norway on any EGI federated cloud resources, which mean that we can actually expand the base, the capacity of processing without any additional requirements or needs, both on the side of those who are providing the pipeline processing engine and for the users who are trying to use it. So that was the major result for the compute platform within the use case environment. The current priority is actually to deal with human data. Because of human data, there is a lot of restrictions, legal mostly, but also technically, how, when, and who can process them. We are working very heavily with EGA to actually get into the environment which will allow you to transfer securely the sensitive data. And we are working with EGA on a way how to actually certify, define and certify cloud providers, being commercial, private, national, your own cloud within your node or even within your university or research institute, to be certified to actually allow secure processing of private data. So the idea is that when you need a huge processing, huge analysis, which may require more resources that they are available at the EGA, that you can actually work with some of these certified cloud providers, that the analysis will be done there, and all the necessary setup, including the legal, technical, access control, the data transfer, is already there, and it will not bother you, but you will have access to more resources. And if it is necessary, there will be a mechanism how to negotiate and how to certify more sites, more providers, in a way to actually fit into the requirements and the capacity needs of the scientific community. Crop and forest plan, so this is the priority for 2018, and we already will have something, or for 2017 and ongoing 2018, we expect to have a webinar on our results in October this year to demonstrate how far now we are in the process of actually providing a secure environment which spans more than one side, the side where EGI sits, or your own local, where you keep your own local data. For the crop and forest plant use case, the again is a different kind of a pipeline, of a workflow. The point here for the compute platform is to actually expand or build on the results from the marine metagenomics pipeline to get even more large-scale processing capacities to be available for the plant, because they are doing a harvesting from many data sources, which goes for the data transmission service, and then they are processing it, and the processing requires non-negligible computing power. So again, they need to have a way to offload these processing needs to some other environment. In this case, this is not sensitive data, but naturally it must be guaranteed way that what you are doing, if you run your own way in Spain one day, and in UK the second, and in Czech Republic the third, that you will always get the same results. That this is not influenced by the changes of the environment. So this is currently it's under preparation, and this will be our goal for the next year, I mean, when we finish with the sensitive data bulk work. And last but not least is the rare diseases. You already have heard about the rare diseases, so I will focus only on the goal for the ELIXIR Compute Platform. So again, the problem here is that for the rare diseases, you have a huge number of individual resources, the data resources. Some of the data will be eventually collected in some of the rare diseases collections, but many of them, and most of them, I guess, will be still kept in a lot of separate places. So the challenge for compute platform is actually to make sure that in this case, this may not be the need for huge amounts of data, but large number of nodes which has to be approached, connected, and the data from them collected in a controlled way. Because this will again be sensitive data. So this combines the data transfer, the huge number of insights, and the sensitivity of the data into one problem, into one challenge. So as it is, this is the most challenging ELIXIR Compute demonstrators, where we will be, that's why it will be our last one, planned for the, say, 2019, where we hope to be able to leverage on the results from the pilots for the previous three use cases to actually show that they can fit together and that they build a really solid, robust platform for doing this kind of work. I mentioned that the second objective of the compute platform is collaboration with other e-infrastructures. Here is the list of some of the infrastructures which we are working in, which we are working with. We work both, we have all three levels. AI, this is especially the ARC and ARC2 projects. Currently it's ARC2 project, which is the Europe-wide project dealing with the challenges of the distributed authentication and authentication. What we are doing is leveraging and using this to actually create our own and then follow up life science AI. We work within European Open Science Cloud Pilot project to actually extend things which we are now doing as use cases within the ELIXIR EXCELERATE project to show that this is really the base or possible base for the EOSC. We are also part of the EOSC hub, where we have a competence center for ELIXIR, which will deal specifically with the data transfer and the data replication, making sure that we really are able to prepare the data where and when they are needed. And we look forward for eventually new European project to deal with the sensitive data at large scale, say together with EOSC, with BBMRI, with all other core BEL, but also with the humanities projects, where they have also very sensitive data to deal with, to find a way how to do this best within the European scale. And as we have been tasked within the ELIXIR to look forward, I have my last, instead of a summary, I have this slide for the vision for the next 6 years. What we expect is that within Europe, we will see a hybrid cloud ecosystem, of which ELIXIR Compute Platform will be an integral part of. This will include all the local, national community and commercial clouds, and we will continue with our strategy to deal with the individual components and tools in a way that they are integrated in a way that suits the life science community. And this is a technical part that we expect that we will move toward the road which currently is represented by container, to provide a secured, guaranteed environment for all the analysis across all these cloud platforms, so that it will be a way how to guarantee that what you are doing is actually what you are expecting. We will be looking toward the way how to make sure that the sensitive data are dealt with within such an environment. This is a very challenging part, because it will go from the local access and allowing the people to access data when they need them, to all the authorization and access control, and also to work with the commercial and, say, national cloud providers, how to actually certify the clouds, or at least part of them, that they can process the sensitive data. The AI, I expect, or we expect, to be evolved from the ELIXIR through the life science AI to the generic AI, which will have life science specifics, say more emphasis on the commercial identities or the people coming from commercial sector, to be allowed to actually use this, the same infrastructure as the researchers and academicians. And part which relates to this is strong access control there. This is something which the ARC2 project is now pushing, and where we expect to be, say, heavily involved as well. And things which I didn't mention previously, but it is a training. We are already working extensively. We are doing a lot of training for the AI, and we expect to do this for the data replication and then clouds. And so the vision is that all this will be enabled through extensive training within the ELIXIR and beyond. Here is some schema, but I will just show it. There are links to more detailed materials, but as I said, I don't have a summary. The vision is a summary for the compute platform. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ludek. Are there any questions?
Everything was clear?
So while people are gearing up, so possibly one of the most challenging parts of this is the certification and the authorization of individual users within the secure environment. Can you say something more about the processes for deploying that?
I mean, I'm not sure that I got. I mean, if you are speaking about the authentication of individuals,
yes.
Yeah, the identities. Currently, I mean, ELIXIR is in parallel to the EU-funded project, is also funding some specific implementation studies. And as a specific implementation study, which we currently are running at the Czech node and the Finnish node, is the part of it is the step-up authentication, which means that we are at one way, looking how to make sure that we know who you are, that it is really guaranteed, and what we are doing now is a federated approach, that we are using guarantees provided by your own institution where you are employed. And the second step is that we are, and for the access to the really sensitive data, we will require most probably that you are not only providing something like a login and password, but that you are providing additional information, maybe some other signal, maybe some biometrics, that will make higher guarantees that the person, not only that you are, the digital you are, but that it was not stolen. Because it will be much more difficult to store these both, the password and the other way, say your mobile phone or your token or your finger, when we are using fingerprints, so that the guarantees that you are you and that you are actually you when you are sitting in front of the computer trying to access the services are reasonably high. And if they are sufficient, say, for the governmental staff, then we expect that they will be sufficient for us as well. And I think there is a question.
Yeah, I have one of the other questions. So one question is this authentication will be on a national level, I think, right? So even although this is going across Europe, then I think what everybody will plan on is that this is on a national level where you authenticate.
I mean, the plan is even below the national level. It's at the level of your own institution.
Okay.
But there are two problems. One is that in case to use it really for the high-level assurance, you need to make sure that your institution is actually following some rules. So, for example, that your account is checked and cannot be easily stolen. Or that if you are an academician at the university, that your account is closed when you leave the university.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And this is not true for all the universities, for all the research institutions.
Then the other question is maybe a little bit more difficult. So we had the Dockerization in the previous presentation, and then we can believe that these infrastructures can go across all Europe. So do you believe that, talking about these compute infrastructures, that you can reach the point where, let's say, through the European Open Science Cloud, the different high-performance compute centers can exchange or will exchange the same infrastructures and use the same infrastructures? Do you believe that this is coming or existing, or is it something which we can dream of, or where are we here?
This is a nice question because you mentioned EOSC and supercomputing centers in one sentence. Mm-hmm. And they are currently two different ecosystems. Okay. Where I believe and trust that this will happen. I mean, the way that, because it's already there, we already are able to demonstrate it, that it's possible to run the same thing here in Spain, in Norway, is within the umbrella of EOSC. The umbrella of the high-performance computing systems is, from my point of view, much more challenging, because especially because these systems are built, they are more custom-made, because they are trying to actually demonstrate and push the envelope of what can be done, which means that they are different. And they will always be different.
Yeah. Well, my take is this is the use case for it, so as you said.
Yeah. So